obviously so much we need to say more about that Bondi Beach terror attack. Let's talk right now with Dr Casey Babb. He's an international fellow at the Institute for National Security Studies in Tel Aviv in Israel and joins us right now. Casey, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Obviously, absolutely horrific scenes we saw at Bondi Beach yesterday. I know you had a particular interest in it because a good friend of yours was on the beach with his wife and children and was shot in the head.
Yeah, my friend Arsen Ostrovsky, he's a friend to many people. He happens to be one of the world's most well-respected, well-known Israeli advocates. He's an Aussie. He's been in Israel for over a decade now with his family, and went back to his first home to celebrate the holidays and gets caught up in this mess. So, yeah, he was grazed in the head, seriously. You'll see clips of him online.
Yeah,
but,
I saw those yesterday. Yeah, and he did give permission for people to share those, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. So, no, it's lucky that he made it out alive. But the carnage in Australia, as you've been talking to with other guests, it's just unfathomable.
I mean, you say it's unfathomable, and there's like a lot of people expressing shock and all that, but none of it's unfathomable, and none of it is shocking to me anymore. And I'm fascinated by people who are still shocked by this.
Yeah, I mean, I think for myself, Julia, I'm with you, but I also try to not become totally desensitized to these things. To me, yes, there are many failures on many levels, but I'm still taken aback when these events happen because they're just so inhumane and so bloody, violent, and horrific. So a lot has to change. But I hear you. These aren't one-off sort of anomalies anymore. This is a trend, and they've become really normalized.
Well, they have become normalised, and we had the attack on the Manchester synagogue only a couple of months ago here. And again, it is a miracle that we didn't see. We've got death toll so far, 15. Let's hope it doesn't rise, with 5 still critical of the 30 still in hospital in Sydney. It's a miracle that we didn't lose that sort of number at the Manchester Mosque in Heaton Park as well. It's heroes that stopped greater loss of life at Heaton Park synagogue, and it's a hero in the form of Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who disarmed the father of the 2 gunmen in Sydney, that perhaps prevented some loss of life there in Sydney. But the same issue has been going on and it's something that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, has called out time and time again in Australia and in many countries in Europe and in Britain, of course, and again, this recognising of Palestine, the rewarding of the Hamas terror group for their attack on October the 7th on Israel, basically not doing anything about pro-Palestinian marchers. There's still video footage up of people on the streets outside the Sydney Opera House shouting, "Where are the Jews? Gas the Jews," openly in English on the October the 8th, 2023, the day after the massacre of 1,200 Jews in Israel. They're shouting "Globalise the Intifada," and I was remonstrating with people all day yesterday. What did you think "Globalise the Intifada" means? It means slaughter Jews worldwide. Well, that's what people are doing. How much do you hold Western governments responsible for these events?
I mean, you have to hold them accountable. There's been at least 48 very serious incidents at synagogues or Jewish events worldwide, throughout the Western world since October 7th. So, we're talking, a couple every month for the last over 2 years. And so what they've done, what these individuals have done consistently is they've tested governments, they've tested institutions, and they've tested, the whole of society. They've been moving the goalposts, protesting, if that's what we want to call it, demonstrating outside Jewish hospitals, outside Jewish neighborhoods, dressing up like Hamas terrorists in public, calling for genocide. The campus protests that were so disruptive and at times violent, intimidating individuals. All of this is them going, oh, how much further can we go? Yeah. And naturally, at a certain point, they're going to want to kill people. And that's what they've done numerous times since October 7th.
But again, also when, and it's a point a guest of mine made earlier, Brendan, when Israel is demonized to such an extent as it has
Absolutely.
been by not just the West, Middle Eastern governments, by the pro-Palestinian mob, by the far left, by the far right, and then by mainstream governments in the West, by the Starmers, the Macrons. I know you're Canadian, by Mark Carney in Canada. When they are demonized, then you kind of they're killing babies, committing genocide apparently in Gaza. I mean, never happened. As in, of course, children died. It's terrible. That's what happens in war. But when they're demonized to such an extent, it then becomes justifiable for people to
Absolutely.
take retributive action, which is what they regard October the 7th as, and the synagogue attack and the Bondi Beach attack and all the others. But that's it. They've legitimized that. So what is the answer? The question I'm asking my audience today: what do Western governments need to do to prevent more of these terror attacks? Because I don't think that prayers and thoughts and lighting candles and vigils is the answer.
Oh, I'm with you. And, some people might not like my answer here, but I don't think what our leaders need to do is particularly complicated. People are looking for these new innovative solutions. What are we going to do? They have to use their head and their mouths. And, unfortunately, over the last few years, this seems to be increasingly a challenge for them. To your point, Julia, as I mentioned, it's not just that they've been moving the goalposts. It's that they've been saying the most egregious, dangerous, and destructive things. I'm talking about, these agitators, these protesters, these activists, whatever you want to call them, for over 2 years, spreading the genocide libel, which is, arguably the most dangerous and appalling in contemporary Jewish history, maybe one of the most damaging of all time. The deliberate famine libel, all of these anti-Jewish conspiracy theories, all of the Israeli conspiracy theories, the hatred. When we don't say anything in response to that, we just give these people oxygen. So I think
Western governments do say, they say, oh, no, you shouldn't say that. No, this is terrible. But they don't do anything.
I to a certain extent, I disagree, because those voices are so loud and so consistent. If you said, give me an example of a Western leader at a university, in a government, in a large corporation that has come out consistently and loudly and said, no, there is no genocide, there is no this, there is no that. I couldn't really give you
No, that is true. There was a government report here, but everyone just kept a bit quiet about it. It was all a bit embarrassing because it didn't tie in with it. But in terms of just words are useful, words are help, they're a start. But what actions should Western governments take?
Well, then the other action is use existing laws. People keep coming up with these new ideas for new laws. Most countries have the laws in place. You just have to enforce them. Unfortunately, we've taught, our militaries, we've taught our police services, we've taught individuals as a whole generation that, let's not infringe on people's rights. Let's not, they're calling for the death of Jews. That must just be a sort of a cultural thing. Let's freedom of speech.
Making excuses. So again, we have the right to protest, but not to shout for the death of Jews or the death of the West.
No, that's, a lot of this is incitement. And a lot of this, most countries have laws against inciting violence. Enforce them. This isn't rocket science. Push back against the madness in front of the microphone and use the laws that have been in place in many cases for decades.
I mean, okay, we know that a lot of the problem is people who are born in this country, often second generation Islamists. Are we talking about deportations of people? Are we talking about closing borders?
Well, Julia, I mean, you see that a lot online. You see people say deport, deport, deport. That's easier said than done. And look, when you're letting in hundreds of thousands or millions of individuals over years, as your other guests and contributors have noted, from countries where this sort of hate is very normalized and very ingrained in the culture, from countries, mind you, that have quite literally purged their entire Jewish populations. You want to talk about a Nakba? Go look at the former Jewish population of the Middle East.
Yeah.
But once citizens become citizens, it's hard to unwind that. Yeah. So governments and institutions and societies need to do more. We need to demand more of people.
Yeah.
And we're too afraid to do that. And
well,
we're
again,
gonna...
people often say we. I don't think the majority of the British public are. I think our governing classes are. Dr Casey Babb will have to leave the international fellow at the Institute for National Security Studies in Tel Aviv. Listening to that as commentator Sam Armstrong. It's interesting how much even people who've speaking out these things, they kind of want to talk around the houses and be a bit careful about it. We basically enabled people, empowered them by saying, yeah, you shout for globalised intifada and from the river to the sea, and you wear your keffiyehs on the streets, and we'll pretend it's all about us being liberal. You can do all of that, but actually, you know, we've empowered these people, and we are not challenging it.
Yeah, and such an interesting point about the fact that there did used to be a Jewish diaspora across the Middle East. There used to be a Christian diaspora too, and then what happened is an extreme form of Islam began to grow and spread in the 1950s. It took over, and as a result, Jews fled here, Christians fled here. Yeah. They're now being followed, and, well, they're going to have to move again, they fear.
This is the terrible thing, isn't it?